Okay, are we live yet?
Yes.
We
It
are?
appears.
Oh my
I
God.
think so, yeah.
Okay. We're live. Okay. So, hello everybody. Looks like we got 0 viewers, so that's good.
It's a good sign.
We're going to be talking today about the new book that was the alternative version of the book on trust that Mr. David Amerland wrote. And I figured who would be a better person to talk about the alternate book than David himself. So first, let me get rid of this cover. Notice how nice the cover looks, though, for the new book. Okay, now
Yeah,
we
it
got that out of
does.
the way. Let me get David in here. Good morning, David. How are you?
Ollie, good morning to you, and I'm great, and kind of looking forward to the discussion.
Absolutely. Today's Friday,
Is your
as we're
camera?
waiting for
Is
this
your
Friday.
camera? Is your camera listing a bit?
No, camera's fine. I think it's you. No, maybe it's Hangouts. It's
Yeah,
Hangouts. It's
it is
Hangouts.
me.
It's Hangouts. It's the Hangouts. All right. So anyway, let me adjust the camera. Okay, now it's good. All right. So the book is called Trust No One, and this was a major undertaking. If you're wondering if David's new book is coming out, he is working on a new book, but the situation with the new book has changed because we had to put all this time into this book. So you can imagine that one person can only shuffle so many books, and so David is trying to. There's actually a scientific project he hasn't talked about squeezing more than 24 hours in a day. And there's people in physics who don't like the approach. People, is somebody calling David?
No, it's okay. Don't worry.
Maybe it's
It's fine.
important.
No, it's okay.
Maybe it's
Don't
one of
worry.
the scientists
It
telling
can't
you that you
possibly be
finally can get
important.
30 hours in a day.
It can't be more important than this.
Okay. Anyway, so back to again Friday conversation, the book, and so let's talk about I guess the concept behind why we even came up with this concept about trust no one. My personal take on this was very simple. Uh, every story out there always has two sides. That's what we always hear, that there's always two sides to the story. So David very eloquently put one side into the trust that described, no, not trust, tribe that discovered trust. I'm sorry, my speech today is a little bit, you know. Yeah, exactly. So it's trust that discovered tribe. I'm sorry, tribe that discovered trust. And now we have to have an alternate. So the alternate deal is trust no one, because in the other book, David was talking about the importance of trust, and the alternate book obviously needs to show the other side of it, and that's where you have trust no one. And so my personal feeling was this was a very important topic because there are so many people out there who are liars and cheaters, cannot be trusted. Uh, I mean, just look at the latest news and you can see that trust is nowhere to be seen. And so that's this particular book. And so, David, what is your take on the whole concept of trusting no one, especially coming from a perspective of your first book that talked about the importance of trust?
Well, here's the thing. Trust creates many issues because you have to find ways to generate it. And really, the whole point is to simplify our lives. So by removing the need to trust anybody, we don't have to worry about any of that. We can live in a world of perpetual simplicity where everybody's a potential threat. And I think that's brilliant because we know how to deal with threats, right?
Exactly. And this is one of the reasons David just recently bought an axe. Sorry,
Yes.
tomahawk. I keep saying
Yes,
axe. It's a
exactly.
tomahawk. Do you by chance have it close to you so we can see it?
I
No?
haven't, but if you give me a second, I can bring it.
Okay. We'll just
A
leave for a few
second.
minutes. We'll be back.
Okay. Okay.
Don't do this again. Sorry,
I will
are we
not.
still live? I'm sorry.
Yes, we are.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Did you get the axe? I needed it actually right now.
Tomahawk,
There we
right
go.
now.
There we
It is
go.
here.
That's the axe. Excellent, excellent. And so, yeah, I apologize for this little interruption we
It
had.
comes with a
We're
knife as
supposed
well.
to have an ad. What is this, David?
It's two-handed fighting. So.
Okay, excellent. So we got several weapons. I really needed one of them at least a minute ago. But we were supposed to have an ad. See, we're not really supposed to. We're not supposed to have this little part where everything just kind of goes dead. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how on your point of view, if you don't trust, then it doesn't really matter. Then you can have the situation where nobody's there in an HOA, and it's nice and quiet and simple. And that's one of the things David just mentioned. Simplicity is the key here, because if you have a simple life, then you're going to live longer. So that's one of the big benefits of trusting no one, is you're going to live longer. Okay.
Virtually
And we
forever.
were supposed to sell an ad here, but unfortunately, nobody wanted to buy advertising for this HOA. So that's why you had that space. But hopefully, by the way, if you're interested in buying any of the ad spaces in the future, just you can send the money to me. David trusts me, so don't worry about that.
Yes,
I realize we're talking about trusting no one and stuff. And did you see how quickly he said absolutely? Did you notice? I wonder if everybody noticed that. But anyway, we're talking about trusting no one here, so let's just continue with that topic. And so we talked about simplicity and how much simpler it is to simply not trust anybody, because then you do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it, and you don't have to worry about any consequences, consequences, like Daffy Duck once said, and everything is hunky-dory. You just have a nice, pleasant life. And looks like we just were joined by another British fellow. Hi there. What's your name? Hello?
Is
I thought
he
we
in?
just got joined by somebody. Somebody just trying to crash into our.
He appeared for a minute, then he vanished.
And I don't see them anymore. But oh, there he is. Where's the hat? Hi there.
Hey, dude.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Can you hear us? Okay. Anyway, you said enough. You shouldn't even be here.
He hasn't said anything yet.
we hope to see the fedora. David brought his knife here, so don't interrupt like this again. All right, then you saw a picture of my heir. The guy can't even speak, as you can see, and don't want to trust. You can't even hear their voice. Anyway, getting back to the book. When you figure out the sound problem, come back if you want. If you have something to say.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. I don't trust you. We'll be able to, but
I can see a theme developing here.
moving on. So anyway, we talked about simplicity. So let's talk a little bit more about the book then, David. So one of the things that you mentioned in your other book, the sister book, if you will, that's what I call it, is the fact that both sides need to be vulnerable to be able to kind of extend the trust. And that's one of the beauties of not trusting anybody, that you don't need to. The other person may be trusting you, which means they're vulnerable. But here's another benefit: is you don't have any vulnerability whatsoever because you're not trusting anybody. So here's, you already have upper hand because you don't need to worry about it, and they do. Do you agree with that, or?
Absolutely. I think the whole thing is about creating what we call asymmetric relationships. You always need to be on top, because then you can pull all the strings, you have all the power. And if you have all the power, the natural thing to do in these situations is to abuse it, but you got to abuse it incrementally, because if you abuse it very quickly, everybody realizes you're abusing it, and they resist you, and then you have to crush them, and it all gets very messy. But if you go on incremental steps, they all think that everything's fine. And I think, and you know better than that, of course, but that's the whole point. And that's the whole direction to do. I mean, the only way to do things.
So it's, number one, it's simple. Number two, you get longer life because you don't need to worry about stuff. Number three, you're not vulnerable at all, and you always have an upper hand. So there's all these benefits that people don't seem to ever talk about. And you have all these goody two shoes trying to do this, do that, and the whole reciprocation thing. You don't have to worry about anything. somebody gives you $1 million, that doesn't mean you need to do anything for them in return.
Exactly.
And so the process is really, it's amazing to me that so few people talk about it. He's back again. There's the cat.
Hey, there he is.
Can you say something or not?
Yes. And I
Yay!
know. Are you fooling me? Are you fooling me? Are you
What do you
fooling me? You did this earlier with the B. You just said, what do you mean? That means you have to have heard my question. You did that thing you did earlier with the B.
With the
Which
bee?
thing
What
is-
bee?
Yeah, what is that?
You mean like the bee that flew into the house and was supposed to bite you? That
Yes.
bee?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
invisible
but that was a
intangible.
joke. Anyway, do you have anything to say? Do you trust your friends at all or not?
Absolutely not. They're the least trustworthy people I've ever met in my entire life.
Excellent. That's what makes them friends. That's just wonderful.
They sound awesome already.
Exactly. And then what about them trusting you? Do they trust you at all?
No, and with good reason.
Okay. Well, you see, so there's an example right there where we have next generation coming up, and obviously these kids are on the ball. Our public schools do a wonderful job teaching them exactly how to utilize the book. In fact, I think every single public school, if anybody listening here goes to a public school, that works at the public school, definitely get the book Trust No One,
It should be a
every
textbook,
single
really.
child should read this book, no question about that.
Yes.
And here's an example of one of them.
Except perhaps maybe the section about the weapons you need, that should be looked at when they're of the appropriate age.
Well, yeah, they can start at the kindergarten. I'm not saying they have to start later. They can start at the kindergarten level. The earlier, if you look at my experience from Soviet Union, the earlier you're being brainwashed with something, the better it sticks. Because eventually what happens, if you don't really start at a young age, what happens is when somebody like myself gets to be 15 and they move to a country like the United States, all this brainwashing winds up leaving you. In other words, if you don't use it, you lose it, as they say.
You lose it, yeah, exactly, yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's why it's important to get the kids in early, and then the whole mistrust thing winds up working really well, as you can see from my son.
Well, that's where the scientific part of the book comes in, Oleg, because we did the psych eval section, which then allows us to create a reinforcement loop on the conditioning of the subject, and that makes it really stick. Yeah.
I thought we talked about none of these people survived at the end. I thought we were not going to bring it up.
Well, the results stand, however, and I think they're too good not to be shared.
Gotcha. Okay. We need to probably do better planning on this deal, because if FBI comes after us asking questions, I don't know how we'll be able to respond to this. Speaking of
bodies, the bodies will never be found, so we're okay.
Do you have any places over there where if I have to take a quick trip to Greece, you can hide me somewhere just in case things...
Oh, absolutely. There's so many places. They will never find you.
By the way, are we still live here? I probably should have said it.
I think we are, yes.
All right, so moving on to the book. Let's move on with the book. So we talked about vulnerability. We talked about, the fact that, in the book, there is a story in your other book, the second book, the previous book, however you want to call it, that talked about trust, talks about these two dudes, basically, not trying to assess each other, and they start throwing spears at each other to figure out what the other one is worth. And one of the things that happens with our book, this book here, Trust No One, is in the first book, they threw spears at trees next to them to try to make a point without starting a war. And that's, of course, when you're trying to get somebody to trust you. So you're trying to you show your upper hand by showing a weapon and actually trying to show that you can do something with it, but at the same time, you're really trying to show that you don't want to start a war. With the Trust No One concept, it totally goes out the door. So in our book, this particular book, we have exactly the same story, except both of these guys got killed as soon as they threw the spears, because they threw the spears.
It was the only logical outcome.
Right, and so the beauty of that approach, in my view, is I'm a big no paper guy. Everything has to be digital for me, and I'm also big time into trees. So the beauty is that the trees did not get hurt in this incident. 2 guys got killed, but you can always make more guys. Trees are a tough thing to grow.
Yes, it is more eco-friendly. Absolutely.
Exactly, exactly. So there's another benefit of not trusting is that when you start wars, then people, I mean, I'm reading a book right now about the whole concept of, there's too many people on the planet and we can't sustain it or everything else. All of these things work really, really nicely. So you can also control the population, because if the spear is thrown to a tree, you potentially kill the tree and you kill the beauty and so on and so forth. This concept here is you kill the person, they can't do any more damage to the planet anymore. They can't do any more damage to basically anything or anybody else. We can always make more people. I mean, it's not that difficult to do.
Plus, there's also a plus in terms of generating an entire section of the economy, because you have to sort of have the rituals which dispose of the body, and you have to buy the paraphernalia for all that. And then there's the mourning period, which everybody has to sort of contribute gifts to the bereaved family. So there's an entire economy which is supported by this concept.
Exactly. Gotcha. And so in terms of making money, since on our book we have the guys holding a bag, and that's one thing I wanted to show you, is that the guy with a cigarette on the image. Let me just show the image again from the book cover. It took us months to come up with this book cover. I mean, just amazing.
And we tested it, rigorously tested.
Right. And so over here you can see that the gentleman holding the cigarette is me, even though I don't smoke, but he just wanted to make it look so it's realistic. And then David is the one who is holding both the bag with the money and the knife. And the knife, he just showed you the real knife. That's where the actual picture came from. Also, some of you may not know, David is usually a pretty private person, but some of you may not know that he comes from a corporate background. He used to work at the corporate. That's why you have the red tie right there. Also, a lot of you probably don't know that David actually speaks some Russian, although I haven't been able to determine the level of Russian. And that explains the red tie, the color red, as opposed to any other color, because of the some tie-in to the former Soviet Union. And so you have the deal with the knife, you have the deal with the money. Also, if you remember, at one point Russian economy collapsed and people literally were dragging like huge bags of money because the money was worthless. So we put a dollar sign here to show that we're not, we don't have any interest in the Russians. We don't trust Russians at all. As much as we don't trust Americans, we don't trust Russians even more. And so, that's kind of a given there. But at the same time, you can see that, the dollar sign is supposed to represent America. So you see a person basically saying that I'm going to give you the money, but at the same time, with the other hand, I'm going to kill you. Okay? And this guy is just sitting, finishing his last cigarette, and, there's a couple of clouds out there, nice, almost three-dimensional view to the little picture. It definitely a lot of thought went into this thing. By the way, if you find a similar image in Google Images, that's not where we got it from. So don't assume that, somehow somebody just changed colors and, added a little bit here and there. This was done, initially it was done live when David and I spent 2 days in the studio taking, a bunch of pictures and videos, and then all of that had to be given to, I think we had like 13 artists, maybe it was 14, I'm not sure. And then I'm sorry?
It was 14.
14, yeah, okay. Sorry, David. And then all of these people had to come up with this, from all these pictures and everything, to come up with this image, as you can see there. And I think it turned out rather well. My head is a little bit rounder than it's supposed to be, but it's pretty close. David's style looks exactly like the one he had in the deal. Yes. And the knife came out, it came out. Plus, the reason we have a couple of clouds in there is because David, a long time ago, started a community on Google Plus, Cloud Wars, and stuff. And whether you trust this or not, this community does exist. And a number of times I was actually crowned Skyking, which is the highest honor you can get for a particular deal. For a particular submission. And partially is because I know David. So, the whole concept of, on one hand, on the other hand, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You know how that
Exactly. Who you know still works.
Exactly. And so that's why I wind up, from time to time when I kind of get a little bit on the downside for some reason, whatever the reason may be, I won't go into all the details. We don't have that much time. But the idea being that I just sent a quick, message to David asking if, I could become a Skyking. and he doesn't. He's got several people who do moderation. David, do you actually moderate yourself too? I don't know if you have time to moderate anymore.
I do from time to time, but I am incredibly lucky because and she rules the unicorns.
Right. So Heidi Bowman is the lady's name, and of course, we don't trust her at all, even though she does all the moderation.
All the unicorns.
But basically, I sent a little note to David saying, "Could you please? I haven't been Skyking for a while." And so next thing you know, I got all these congrats, all these comments, congratulations, Skyking. And that's this is part of the whole trust no one deal, because I don't trust any of those people, and yet you can see that they still make me Skype. I still need to provide pictures and everything. So David, how about instead of me talking all the time, how about you talk a little bit about your people in your life who you don't trust at all, but you wind up interacting and wind up whatever benefits you wind up getting out of it?
Oh, I really trust no one at all because they all lie. And the reason they lie is because they can. And everybody lies because we know human economic behavior is self-serving, right? So really, it's always somebody's loss is somebody's gain. But as long as you apply the law of incremental asymmetrical relationships, and you apply it dutifully across the entire spectrum of your activities, you can be guaranteed to be on top of your little pyramid. And that is the best position to be in. And from time to time, there'll be challengers. But provided you know the right people, you can make those challenges go away.
Right.
And then the challenges stop after a while. Which incidentally also makes for a very good political model, right? Because it removes uncertainty. Because one of the problems with elections is you never really know who's going to win, right? Which is really crazy because we do all this energy and all this planning and all these polls and all these analytics, but really you need a little bit of certainty. But if you have this kind of pyramid model, that's brilliant because you can guarantee the results. People cast their vote.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say people cast their vote, they're given a chance to choose, and the right candidate comes out.
No, but let's talk specifics here, for example. I keep getting daily emails, as an example, from Ted Cruz. And the emails say, now is the time, blah, blah, this. I mean, the guy just constantly keeps asking for money almost daily. I don't know how the hell he, I wound up getting on his deal. I think it's probably because there was this one Sunday read where you made some political comments and I wrote the opposite side.
Quite possibly.
And I think they must have seen it and they decided that they support them because of this. And
yes.
That's the only thing I can think of. Anyway, they probably stupid constant emails saying that, contribute, we only need $25, we're $400,000 short. If we don't do this, Trump is going to ABC, and on and on and on and on. And the reality of it, if you look at it, if I trusted the guy from everything that he says, I would have wound up spending a bunch of money. And then in the end, it looks like the guy may not win after all. So you spend all this money and you end up basically contributing to nothing as the end result.
Crazy.
I'm sorry?
It's crazy.
Totally. The other approach is very simple. I don't trust any of them. I don't give them any of my money. Somebody is going to win, whoever it's going to be. Okay? And, how bad can it get? If it gets really, really bad, then, we can always move to Greece. I mean, David did that with Great Britain. Obviously, things got so bad that he couldn't stay over there anymore. So he just trips to Greece. Right, David?
Exactly.
So he doesn't.
And not only that, but I've got a fortified island.
Either because you have dual citizenship, right?
Well, yeah, I've actually got 3 passports because I'm also Australian.
Oh, okay. So you got 3. So okay. I got you. And so, so you really have a full flexibility of being able to trust none of these countries, and yet you're able to travel and you're able to, participate in their social system of whatever they have in terms of social stuff. And so it works out pretty well, which explains how you have the money to buy knives and axes and everything else, right?
Exactly. You shouldn't. Nobody can get enough weapons, in my opinion.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. You definitely. Yeah. The deal. If you don't trust people, you need weapons. Is the bottom line. All right. So.
Absolutely.
I was just trying to remember in terms of money. Let's talk about a little about money making. So, I'm assuming you don't trust your publishers to be honest with you in terms of cuts.
No,
So
no,
how
not
do
at
you
all.
deal with the money situation with them? On one hand, I see that they're pushing you over and over and over to try to get all this stuff done. In it's almost like slave labor. How much work you have to put in to write the silly book so they can make money. I mean, it just seems like it's totally unfair.
Yes, it is, absolutely. I mean, there's hours and hours and endless hours of writing. It is like slave labor. But this is where the tomahawk comes in.
So you go into a meeting with a tomahawk, and that's why
yes,
they changed publishers so many times, basically. That's
yes.
the reason.
So yeah, I mean, there's only so many members of the marketing team and the editorial board you can threaten so many times before they start having psychological issues and PTSD. And then you need to change publishers, of course. Thankfully, there are a lot of publishers around at the moment, so it takes a while to exhaust them all.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I totally spaced. I keep forgetting we're live, and so these people.
Yeah, me too. I'm probably being more forthcoming than usual.
I'm sorry. What was that?
I said I'm probably being more forthcoming than usual.
You are, but that's good. It's good because nothing you're saying is true anyway, and nobody's trusting you. So whatever you say is so good.
Yes.
So anyway, so we move on to the money deal. So in terms of the money, then coming back, because a lot of people obviously use the mistrust thing to make money. I mean, that's the common deal. You look at people like Bernie Madoff. It's a classic thing. Everybody trusted him. He didn't trust anybody, and look at the results. Yes, the guy wound up in jail, but look at all the money he made. So it's one of those kind of deals.
Billions.
So in your case, with your books and everything, how do you deal with making sure that you get your cut of the money? Is it just weapons, or is it more?
Well, it's primarily weapons, but then you can also resort to veiled threats on family members. You need to apply pressure in a very sort of layered kind of way, because if you just come at it from only one direction, it becomes a very monodirectional thing, which creates a kind of sort of black and white situation. And we know that in the real world, nobody operates like this. So you need to know their family members. There's a little bit of stalking involved. Thankfully, social media allows this to happen very quickly, and you can do it from anywhere. And I think this is brilliant. And if you do it right, then you pretty much create a very composite picture of all the pressure points which you need to address. And then it's a case of having done your homework, you work the plan.
What do you mean by black and white? I didn't quite get it. You're saying that there is no black and white? There are no people black and white?
I was going to say there's no situation which is black and white.
But you don't imply that there aren't people black and white.
Well, probably not. I mean, not in the way we sort of think.
What do you mean? Of course there is. I'm a black and white person.
No,
okay,
nobody's quite.
This is that's not funny, because I'm a card-carrying black and white person, and it just. Hey Ben, why don't you pick it up? Because I need to take a moment here.
Speaking of.
Ben, tell me your point of view on this, Ben.
Okay, what I was gonna say was that speaking of people who are not black and white, let's talk about Hollywood. They are the least trustworthy people, because as far as they're concerned, the Doctor blew up Gallifrey. But everyone knows that it was actually Worf of the Klingons, because he's a Sith. That totally made sense.
It did actually. That's deep analysis, right? Because you joined all the dots, getting through all the complexities of identity and getting right down to the villain who actually is responsible for the crime. That's really good work.
Yes, I did not think of that theory out of nowhere. It was definitely hours and hours of an invisible chartboard behind me. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Invisible chartboards. You've heard it now.
We're hopefully gonna have. Yeah, you go on.
So anyways, so in the Trust No One book, do you do several examples or stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I mean more than that, Ben. I think anybody buying a book like that really needs a game plan, because you need to know how to stalk people, how to threaten them, what kind of equipment you're going to need, and then how do you apply that in a way that actually gives you the desired outcome. So we do the whole thing. I mean, examples, diagrams, pressure points, everything.
I like how you just hold up the little axe and just like, we have to make threats.
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, although it would appear to be that's all that's required, because you also need to know exactly how to do it in order to reach the right degree of intimidation. Like most things, if you do it right, it works, but if you go past a certain point and you overdo it, then you get an irrational response back, which kind of negates the outcome you're looking for. So really, there's a science to this, which is quite deep, and Oleg and I have done a gazillion hours of research and practical application to all this. So, and Oleg in particular, he was incredibly good at holding people down while we explained their position to them, and and all this is going to the book. All this research, it just shows you exactly how it should be done.
Yeah, the book looks like this. Just
yes.
So you know. This is not really the book. This is just a rough copy that we used. It has a built-in camera, and we just use this as a mock-up deal to show what the book will look like. It doesn't have the real cover, but just anyway, I got a little winded because I had to run, get some fresh air after that black and white.
No, it was upsetting. I realized. This is a hard-hitting show today, Oleg. We're not holding back. No pulling punches.
Absolutely. Ben, you're still here? I thought you were supposed to do something else.
I was actually going on an ending note. I was waiting for like a break and then so on an ending note, remember, never trust anybody. Nobody's trustworthy. Don't even trust yourself. Goodbye.
There we go. And that takes it. Excellent. All right, I'll give you the $10 after the show.
Whoa, it was expensive.
Well, did you see how realistic and how genuine the statement was?
That's very true, actually. Yes. Yes, talent. Talent should be paid.
Plus, we live in the times when $10 buys you a muffin and a cup of coffee. It doesn't buy you much more, so it's not like it's a huge amount of money anymore. No, but one thing he said that I thought was important. What did he say? To trust nobody.
He said about trusting no one. Yes.
Oh no! But, he doesn't trust himself. That was the key thing. And so if we go with that point of thinking, is one of the greatest minds, one of the greatest leaders. My mom said, this is a true story, by the way, I'm not making this up, that when the guy died, that leader of the country, basically she said the whole class cried, including her. And this guy, this quote, I posted this quote earlier, said that he doesn't trust anybody, including himself. I mean, it's a famous quote from the guy. And the guy was a leader of a country for many decades. Yeah, several decades and stuff, and was totally revered by everybody who lived there, because people who had any kind of problems with the guy, he immediately killed them. And so it was a really he trusted nobody. And
that's such a direct solution to a problem. It's like the Gordian knot, isn't it?
Right.
Alexander the Great. Where they told him you need to untie it, and he said, "Well, there."
Exactly. As one of the books, by the way, if you're wondering who we're talking about, you haven't seen the poster that I did earlier. It's Joseph Stalin, famous Georgian. You probably thought he was Russian. He's not Russian. He's Georgian, and his real name is Jugashvili, is his actual real name. But because the guy didn't trust anybody, he didn't even trust anybody to know his real name, so he went with this other name, and he used the word Stalin actually comes from the word Stalin, which means steel in Russian. And he acted like he was made out of steel until somebody eventually poisoned him, even though that's disputable, but that's the theory goes that how the guy died. And of course, who would poison him? Somebody in his inner circle, obviously, somebody you consider to be close to you and your best friends and confidants, and those are the people who spill the poison in your cup. So it's
always your friends.
I'm sorry?
It's always your friends.
Exactly. It goes back to the whole you don't trust anybody concept. And in the end, he wound up obviously dying. and he did kill several dozens of millions of people, but still he was, people were crying because he died, if you can believe that. This is, by the way, a true story. Whether you trust it or not, it's actually a true story. So in terms of not trusting yourself, David, do you trust yourself or not?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah, see, like David said, it makes things simple. Don't have to worry about that. He trusted this one woman one time. How long were you married, David?
Oh, a lifetime.
No. How many years?
16.
16?
Yeah.
So here we go. He trusts somebody for 16 years, and then they wound up getting a divorce. Obviously, she wasn't trustworthy whatsoever. And there's an example here right there. So even when you try to step out of your norm and actually trust somebody, you still get spanked. And so now David doesn't do that anymore. He's totally, saw the light. The book basically talks about all these things, how not to get married, and how not to trust anybody, because you will wind up in a divorce. You can see from statistics that's what most people wind up doing. You don't trust your teachers, you don't trust your friends. Just basically, you just don't trust. Okay, if you want to have a simple, you only live once. Might as well a simple, convenient life. And I'm playing around with this Google pen. See this? I got a nice Google pen that they gave me.
Oh, yeah.
And look, the cool thing about this pen is, in addition to having ability to write, you also have a little light. So if you want to,
so you can write in the dark.
So if you want to examine somebody's eyeball when you're taking it out, you can actually see what you're doing. So it also could be used as a weapon.
Did he say when you're taking their eyeball out?
Exactly. You can actually see precisely.
The iris scanners.
Because remember, if you accidentally, puncture the wrong side of the head, I mean, if I keep pushing here, I can be pushing for a long time. Nothing's going to happen because, the skull is there. So if you push the light, and you actually shine the light here. I mean, right now it's too light anyway. You can't see the shiny part, but you can see that I can, shine pretty close. And if you wanted to see my eye, I don't want to get that close because this is about trust. It's not about my eyes. So I think we pretty much covered most of the things about the fact that, trusting somebody is a mistake. Trusting yourself, most of the time, is a mistake. And it's much easier to live the other way. And the book, is available. It's hard to get, but it's possible to get. You just need to know the right people.
They just need to give us money, send to a special numbered account, and we will deliver the book.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if there's not enough money, then delivery will be done either by myself, if there's sufficient amount of money, or by David if there's not enough money, but he will be coming with those taxes. So
yes,
the money needs to be in place.
They are not in mind. The money has to be sufficient.
Yeah. Also, we're not trying to scare you here by showing you the sword, but
it's facts. We need to be factual about this, because we need to be transparent and honest.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
So we're telling you how it is.
So that's kind of very subtle but key difference between the two. You can be transparent, but at the same time, you don't have to be trustworthy. I mean, look at President Clinton. I mean, right there, perfect example.
Exactly.
Okay, so with that being said, David, do you have any other closing words before we finish this?
Well, only one, which everybody needs to bear in mind, and that is that the money you send us needs to be sufficient.
Right. Exactly. And David is working on some other book. Just so you know, speaking of full transparency, he's working on some other books right now as we speak. All of those books will require money. So if you want to, participate in getting his books, which are essential for just about anything you do in life, then you can get the books from all over the place. The new book that's coming out, it was supposed to be coming out towards the end of the year, but David is going to make it happen because they keep pushing him, and it should be out literally within a few hours here. Right, David?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So you can definitely, this one time I'm going to say to go ahead and trust us when we tell you that the book is going to be here.
Yes,
in a few hours and stuff.
It's a 40-hour day, right?
Exactly. So until next year, when we talk about another one of the books, then we would say thank you for listening and watching. And it's always a pleasure for me to have David in a hangout. This is one of these brief moments where I'm actually telling absolute truth here without any mistrust. And with that said, David, thank you very, very much, as always.
Thank you. Thank you. It's awesome.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank yous all around. So remember, you may not trust people, but you do need to thank them, because that conveys what you need to convey. You get your money. You don't really necessarily have to go, spill anybody's blood. It works this way. So don't trust them, but you
Yes.
get to take their money. Okay, that's it. I think we're done for today. If you have any questions, don't write it to us because we're not going to answer. It's just the way this part works.
We don't care.
Exactly. We don't trust you, and we don't care.
Yes.
But do send the money, like David stated. Do send the money.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Don't forget.
yes, yes, yes. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Are we still live?
I think we still are. Yes.